Welcome, everyone, to Alliance for a Viable Future podcast. I'm your host, Lev Natan, and really feel privileged today to be here with professional musician, songwriter, producer Edson Sean. Was connected with you through, I believe it's your partner in life.
Yep. Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
yeah, who was on the show about a month ago,
Nice.
uh, Aaron Maya.
hmm
And I know you guys make music together, and you're creating your life together as
Yeah.
far as
Yeah.
as far as I know. So it's wonderful to have you here as well,
Thank
and
you for
get
having
into
me.
it. Yeah, thank you for being here, saying yes. So yeah, we just had a nice conversation, before we hit record, and so
Right.
I feel that connection, and just want to kind of open up the space here. I like to just be real in these spaces. Uh, we're building a conversation, with all the different guests that come on. I feel like it's a conversation that I've needed to have in my life, and so here
Mm.
we are having it. And what I heard you wanting to bring forth, and which resonates deeply, is focusing on men's work, men's
Yes.
mental health, being a
Yes.
man in this world, and how that's connected to the importance of love,
Mm.
and then
hmm
then art creation, that it's a way of life.
Yeah.
And then these pieces that I wanted to blend into that is talking about race
Yeah.
together, as a black man and as a white man. I said it makes my armpits sweaty, but then I just, like I said, I'll wash my shirt. It's no big deal. These are conversations that,
Right.
that need to be had right now, and so we can bring that forward, and social justice and social change, and
Yes.
all these
Yes.
things, and how it's all, fundamentally, the ground that we're standing on right now is music, right? Music is the
Yes.
the breath of your life, and is very connected, as a core in my life as well. So I just wanted to open all those doors, and then just say welcome, and wherever you want to start, whatever is alive for you.
Wonderful. Well, let the doors open, the windows open, let the air circulate.
Yeah.
It's even in our pre-talk, I was like, okay, it's like all of these things are things that I believe, and I'm always talking about, and like all the thoughts are like jumbled up. It's like, where do I start? But for me, foundation of it, and the reason why I think, especially men's work, and more specifically the work for black men, stems from my relationship with my dad. And a
Mm,
lot of the way I look at the world was shaped by my relationship with my dad. A
mm,
quick backstory: the relationship with my dad was challenging. It wasn't the way I wanted it to be. And then when you look at it, as I look back in hindsight, I'm like, well, he was doing the best that he could with the tools that he had, because he didn't have a great relationship with his dad. And it's not like he told me that, but every time he would bring up his father, was always uh, anger behind it. It's always like well, my father used to justify the way that he interacted with me. Um, I very often felt like I wasn't good enough. Mistakes were like the worst thing on the planet. I remember doing homework and being deathly afraid of getting questions wrong, because I knew that my dad was going to be very upset about it. He was going to threaten, beatings, whatever, punitive, repercussions for mistakes. And
mm,
so I carried that with me throughout life. I carried that with me into every single like arena of my life, from my job to creation of music to relationships. Like, mistakes just were unacceptable. And what it ended up doing was, it ended up causing me not to pull the trigger on certain things, for
mm,
fear of getting it wrong, for fear of this mistake, when the path to my success was making several mistakes.
mhm,
And again, this is something I learned later in life, but my dad taught me the exact opposite. You can't make mistakes. Why? His experience as a black man who was an immigrant from Guyana, who came over to the United States, Mistakes means you miss an opportunity. You
Mm,
have to be 10 times better, if not more, than your white counterpart in order to get something that you're maybe overqualified for. So
mm,
mistakes are unacceptable. So now, as I'm rationalizing now as an older man, I'm like, he was protecting me in a matter of speaking,
mm,
in his own way. But
mhm,
it caused an emotional trauma for me because now
mhm,
I'm going through life thinking like I'm not good enough. I can't do such and such, especially if I make a mistake. And I
mm,
kind of devalued myself. And it's like all of these things that I can do well, is also a byproduct of that. It's like even when I'm playing basketball, I'm like, I can't enjoy playing basketball if I don't know what I'm doing. Like if I'm not like, I haven't been in the gym for a little while, and I'm like, I got my cardio up, and if I haven't been practicing my dribbling drills or putting up shots, I'm not gonna go out there and play because I don't want to look bad, because then it looks, again, it all stems back to mistakes. And so it's like that, the trauma from that relationship, I carried that with me throughout life until he passed away.
mm,
And then when he passed away, I was like, okay, the thing that was anchoring me is gone. What do I do now? And it was like a whole new, it was a shift, and it was a whole new journey that I was on to become the man that I was crafting now. Like I have no reason to be like, well, my dad wants me to do this. He's no longer here. And you have to live your life. And so now I'm on a journey of healing. All of the judgments that I'm hearing in the back of my head, I don't know how to quiet those voices, and they're getting louder and louder. And then now what ends up happening is, because I'm feeding into that voice, I'm attracting that to me. I'm attracting my dad, even though he's not here, in relationships, in job situations. For example, Love Me Still, the girl that's in Love Me Still, when I look back, like she really reminded me of my dad, pointing out what I thought, pointing out my flaws, pointing out the things I
mm,
didn't do well. And then we just had this very toxic interdependence, because I saw a lot of myself in her. I thought that, well, if I can fix her, I'll be happy. I'm happy because I'm able to fix her. And what I was doing was ignoring what I needed to fix to myself.
mm, mm. Wow. Yeah, thank you for just jumping right in with just your real, and we all I have, I could tell you about my journey with my dad. It's we
Yeah.
as men, right? That's such a it all starts there, like you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you know, uh but then for you to just say um he was just doing the best that he could do,
Yeah.
right off the bat, or like right here, right now, that
Yeah.
takes work. In other words,
Mm.
that's then when I hear you
Yeah.
say that, I'm like, oh well, you know, it's taken me time to get to that
Absolutely.
awareness.
That
When
work
I'm
is an understatement.
right, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's taken me, yeah, exactly. It's an understatement. So then for me, it's work, it's healing, like you're saying. And then you said that music
Mm,
is a healing journey. So yeah, I'm just curious, like how has how have you done that healing work to be able to be in a place in your life? And I know we only have 40
I
minutes,
know, I know.
but it's like, but how have you done your healing work,
Yeah.
um to be able to come to see things from uh be a mature man's perspective, that
Yeah.
which for me is like that you can give love, you can be compassionate.
Yes. Man. Um, like you said, you got limited time, but I'm gonna condense as best I can, because I think a lot of it stemmed from at first acknowledging that something was wrong and I wanted something better. Sometimes we can remain complacent. We can be like, well, this is what I know, this is what happened to me, and I'm just gonna stay here. I first had to decide that I didn't want to stay there. And you know, I was so angry with my father even after he passed away, that it would come up in times when I didn't even expect it to. I'm like, he's not even here anymore. And so I had to go about the work of now figuring out, how can I be a healthier version of me? How can I be my healthiest version? Um, One of my lowest points was, and it's so interesting, right? One of the most successful songs, "Love Me Still," came out at one of the most painful times in my life.
Mm,
Painful
mm,
times in my, you know,
mm,
um, and that's the thing that I love about art is because I'm able to take this painful thing
mm,
and like craft it into something. Everybody's like, "Oh man, I love that song." Yeah, I didn't love that time though, but
mm,
you know, but the thing is also people resonate with that song. They're like, "Oof, I felt like that. I've been there before," and I think
mhm,
that's the thing that I want my music to continue to do because not only it initially that song was healing for me,
mm,
because that woman, I loved her. I felt like I gave the best that I could, and that might not have been enough for her, and that might not have been the type of love she needed, but there was also a lot of things in her that I didn't need to be around, like the anger, there's a lot of things that reminded me of my dad that I was drawn to because that was what was comfortable. And so first I had to acknowledge I want to be different. I don't like this. And then I started going down the rabbit hole of what are successful people doing. And I started reading certain books that were fueling that for me. The Seven
what's
Habits
one
of High,
that
yeah.
what's one of those books that just I'm
Oh,
just curious,
Seven
like,
Habits of Highly Effective People,
mm,
and then the Four Agreements following right after. Because the most
mm,
important agreement for me was don't take anything personal. Now that
mm,
was the hardest one for me because the idea is that everybody is looking at the world through their own pair of glasses, and
mhm,
however they respond to you has nothing to do with you.
mm,
They might be like, "Yo, Lev, man, I love your haircut, man. You looking sharp today." It has nothing to do with you. They're feeling good that day. Because then the next day,
yeah,
be like, "Man, why'd you buy those glasses? Why'd you choose that frame?" You know what I mean? And so it's like everything is based on the glasses that they look at life through. And I started really trying to embrace that. Then I think the more I started on that journey, that's really when the divide between myself and that young lady started going in different paths. Because
mm,
she was still on the path that I was on prior, the path that I saw, and I thought that I can fix for her, and I couldn't. I needed to really focus on me, and it was even up to when we were broken up. I'm like, what am I gonna do? And it forced me to be like, you have to fix yourself because you can't be this broken up over somebody leaving. You know, you
mhm,
got to pick yourself up. And so I went to therapy. I got a therapist. Um,
mm,
which again, especially in the black community, is taboo. Like they tell you, just pray on it.
mm,
A lot in the black churches just pray on it. You know.
mm, mm. Yeah, yeah. These are some big things, and then it's just bringing me, especially. It's one thing to create some art, and it's right art therapy. It's therapeutic music therapy, right? That's wonderful. I connect with it, right? I do sound
Mm-hmm.
healing. I work with
Okay.
sound
Yeah.
in that way. Uh, so I'm all for it. And then it's another thing, right, to make a music video and to be a musician
Yeah.
out in the world, bringing the most painful things out into the world in your
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
That takes leadership. That takes
Yeah.
courage, right? And to be on a podcast right now, with a video, and
Right.
talking about your own healing journey, right? As a human being, as a man, as a black man,
Yeah.
saying I'm out as who I am. That takes courage. It takes leadership. So, um, yeah, what's that been like? It's like step by step for you.
It's interesting, right? Because I even remember when I was like a child, man, and in the church, they have all these different committees and all these things, and they were always like pushing me to be in these committees. I'm like, I don't want to do that. That looks like more work than I'm ready for. I do not want to do that. But and even as I'm going along, people were seeing something in me that made them want to put me in those positions. And I was like, I don't want it. I do not want that. But then I realized like we're all leaders in our own way, man. And I think when I think about being a leader, I just think about the idea of let me share my experience and see how it helps you. Because even in leading, you also need to learn how to follow because there's somebody who may have a different skill set than you. And like, okay, look, you take the lead on this, right? Um, and I think right now the most important person that we need to lead is ourselves. And I like to say, I like to lead by example. And that's why, sometimes sharing these stories are challenging, but I feel like me sharing these stories, leading by example, might give somebody else the tools to do the same. You know, very often I think about legacies when I think about leadership. And what
Mm,
I mean by legacy, legacy by the definition is you leave money for your children after you've passed away.
mm,
But even when you don't have children, you can leave a legacy. How are you affecting the people that are in your circle?
mm,
How are you affecting the people that are in your circle? And I've had people come to me, which is one of the most humbling things, and share with me how something that I've said, that I was just like, I'm just like sharing this in passing because, this is what I believe. This is what worked for me. This is what I've tried and it's worked. And I've said something to someone and they're like, man, this really changed my perspective. This really affected how I look at things. And for me, I think that's worth more than a plaque, a million streams. That human connection that you can make
mm,
directly and indirectly through a musical piece. Because again, I've had people in Germany send me messages like, yo, how come I've never heard of you before? And
mm,
to me, I'm like, dang, and so that's why I really take my creations seriously. Again, and I'm not knocking anything that's created because I think that all music is valid. All music is valuable. All music has a purpose. But for me, I'm very deliberate with the energy that I put behind the music that I put out
mm,
because I know that this is going to reach more than 10 people. Even if it reaches only 10 people, those 10 people will be affected a certain way by the music that I'm creating because they're listening to it. They're that vibration's going to stay with them. I look at our bodies as a vehicle, our voice, our mind. Right now, our vehicle is this technology with cameras and the microphones where you and I are able to speak as if we're sitting in the same room. Our vehicle is the technology, but who we are is what's translating through that technology. And so, if I'm giving people a piece of myself, that to me, I take that very seriously. And so, even no matter how clever I write something or how melodically this thing sounds, the message has to be something that I'm like, okay, I'm happy with this. I'm
mm,
telling a story that I genuinely co-sign and I want to share with people and give them this reaction.
mm, mm. Amen. Yeah. Legacy.
Mm,
It's really the whole point of this Alliance for a Viable Future, the podcast, and then the whole mission of the organization. It's about the children,
yes,
and the future generations, like what you're
yes,
saying, and that sense of you know where are we going? What you're saying. How am I affecting? How are we affecting? You know the next moment, really, and the people around me. So yeah, that word has always just held a lot for me.
mm,
And it makes me think about change, and feels like a moment to talk about the collective. um that I was just reading a book that was reminding me about the power of small things, like you're saying, we're having this conversation right now,
yes,
or
yes,
or you made your song, and then it gave something, or someone was listening to an interview that you did before, and they said, oh, I was able to get something that was really useful, not like a technique, and it's like, oh, I tried that out and it was cool. Like, no, no,
right,
no.
right,
I was like
right,
in the hole. I didn't know what to do,
yeah,
and I heard that, and it I found where to put my hand and my foot
yes,
and climb myself out. Like, what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
that's real, what you're
yeah,
saying. That's, like you said, there's nothing better to contribute to someone's life in that kind of real way. And then on a collective, where I get where my mind goes is, In this book I was just reading, he was mentioning this. It's called the Maharishi effect, I believe,
Okay.
where
Okay.
they're talking about meditation, group, collective meditation, like consciousness. Where
Yes.
they said 1%. That's how it works. There's like a critical mass of 1% of a population set. If they're doing a meditation experiment, like in Brooklyn, let's say, but they've done it in cities before, like a whole bunch of meditators that add up to 1% of that area, it changes the crime rate, for example.
Whew.
And it's for real. It's
Wow.
science now.
Wow.
They've created these studies. So then you think about, wow, 1%, that's 10 out of 1,000 people. So if 10 people are getting together and meditating with a real potent intention, or they're praying, or they're singing, right? A band, right? When you're practicing, and then you set that intention, like, oh, I'm making this song. So, that ripples out in a very impactful way. So all that to say, just want to open this conversation about change and social justice and race too, and
Mm.
us being here. I am a white man. I'm a Jewish man, and then you being a black man. I've been thinking about uh, a few years ago. I heard Ta-Nehisi Coates give an interview, and he said, "Look, you know." slavery and racism, it's been in this country for 400 years. It's not going to change in you know
Right. In
in
4 days.
5 years, like, hey, let's just deal with it, let's clean that up.
Right.
It's like, no, it's going to be another 400 years. That's what he said. So
Yeah.
of healing work. So that
Yeah.
like kind of stopped me, and it made me sink
Mm.
into, like, my body a little more, and you're like, whoa, okay, and then I was just reading this, My Grandmother's Hands, by Resma. I
Oh,
can't remember his last name. It's a really beautiful book.
yeah.
He's a
Title of the Bill Withers record too.
say again.
That's the title of that Bill Withers record too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know that one, but
Yeah, he has a song called Grandma's Hands.
nice, nice. But he's talking about it healing in the body. That's what it's about. It's like we
Mm.
need to heal. It's like you can have these policy change, and, yeah, civil rights acts, and we've tried all that. We're going to have to keep doing all that also. And he's talking about healing our bodies. White bodies, black bodies, police bodies need to heal. All people, all colors, healing our bodies. So anyway, those are just some of the things I wanted to bring. I don't know, what's coming to you as we get
I'm
in
gonna start
here.
with the last. I'm gonna start with the last thing that you said. Healing in the bodies, man. It just triggered something because when I'm like all these policies, here's the thing that people speak about when it's like, well, racism no longer exists. They have all these policies in place, but the healing in the body hasn't fully happened yet. The healing in the body hasn't happened yet. There's still generations upon generations upon generations of stereotypes and stigmas on both sides that still need to be healed. I'm not sure if you had, but if you haven't, watch the movie Judas and the Black Messiah.
Say it again.
It's Judas and the Black Messiah. It just
Mm.
recently came out. It's on HBO Max, but I'm sure there's another way you can see it if you don't have that. It's about the story of Fred Hampton
Mm.
and
Mm-hmm.
William
And for those
O'Neill.
of you, for
Yeah,
those who don't know who Fred Hampton is, I'm grateful to say I do. But can you
wonderful.
can
Yeah,
you yeah.
yeah, definitely, definitely. Fred Hampton was the chairman of the Chicago branch of the Black Panther Party, and the FBI kind of they colluded with the Chicago Police Department to have him assassinated because the thing that he was doing, which I feel in my heart, man, if he if he was living, he would have been able to accomplish what Martin and Malcolm might not have, because he was able to bring together
Mm-hmm.
Confederates, the Latin,
Mm-hmm.
the was it the
Mm-hmm.
Latin Kings,
Yeah.
um,
The Latin
all of
Kings.
these gangs, all of these gangs, and for the common cause. Why? Because he was like putting the power in the hands of the people. That's it. Because if you think about it, the 1% do not want the people to have the power. And once he started showing people like, yo, look, same conditions you got is the same conditions I'm living in. But now you're up against you're going against me because I'm black. I'm putting up resistance against you because you're white, but we're dealing with the same problems. They want this division because it keeps everything status quo, and those are that the 1% maintain their financial standing. And
Conquer
so
and
now,
divide.
exactly, exactly. And so now, when I think about healing happening in the body, like that's the thing we need to start as. Like we need to start having conversations on common ground, and then get to the stuff that's different. There's so many more things that we have in common than are different, and I think if we start there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think we also need to acknowledge the effect of history. We have to acknowledge it. People, there are still companies, families that are still benefiting from the financial gains of slavery. You gotta
Mm-hmm.
be real. And so to be like, oh well, it's done already, it's happened already, let's forget about it and
Mm-hmm.
move on. There are families, the Rockefellers, there are families who are still benefiting from the financial gains that were gotten from that. They're benefiting from the disparity between the races. Like racism is used to keep those that have and those that have not separate. That's really what it is. And I think we need to start having those conversations. We need to start acknowledging, yes, there is a disparity in the treatment of a white man and a black man when it comes to an encounter with the police. When I have friends of mine even that are like, oh, you're talking about defunding the police. Now look at the safety. That was crime was gonna happen regardless, bro. Crime was gonna happen regardless. Defunding the police is not taking all the money from the police and disbanding them completely, but it's reallocating resources to other things that might uplift these communities that are in a situation where they have to do things um, to get money that are criminal. A lot of it, it's like when you pull on the thread, you're gonna keep pulling, and you're gonna unravel that
Mm-hmm.
whole scarf,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because it's all interconnected. And I think once that acknowledgement happens first, that it's like the same thing with healing. Like you have to acknowledge that I am not well. I need to fix this.
Mm-hmm.
We are not well as a people. We are not well. We are divisive. We are jealous. We are easily corrupted, and we have to acknowledge those things. We have to acknowledge things that have happened in the past, things that are still happening now. In 1964 they were talking about anti-fascist governments. What are we talking about today? Like we're still having these same conversations, and I think a lot of the conversations are still being had because we are not willing to acknowledge history. We're not willing to see, like, this has happened before. This isn't new. This has happened before. And how can we avoid those mistakes? We have to look back at the past. We have to acknowledge those things. We have to acknowledge the racial disparities. We have to acknowledge those things.
Mm. Amen. Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to, you know, I'm just I don't want to put you on the spot as, the
No, please put me on the
representatives of
spot. I'm
black
good,
people, but
man.
I want to ask this question. How can me personally, in like we're building a relationship, we're getting to know each other right now, you know, and maybe in a collective way, but actually I am genuinely just asking you how I can be a better ally to black men.
Wow. That is a great, great question. And I think part of it is having these uncomfortable conversations. Um, how have you benefited from systemic racism? Like even answering things like that. You know what I mean? Like I think it has to be acknowledged, like the acknowledgement that I have to work 10 times harder than you do to get the same position. And I think having those uncomfortable conversations, those acknowledgments, right? And then I think it's really about brainstorming, how can we even the playing field? Even if it's just in our small circle, what can we do? Even I think even just the presence of that. having, you know, myself, yourself, being present and having these conversations, being present and doing like giving out food. I mean, just different things. I think showing that there is more unity and what a unified commitment can look like from myself, from people that look, from white men that look like you, white women, black women. I think right now we are we're comfortable having these conversations separately,
Mm.
because when you have these conversations separately, there's a comfort in that.
Mm.
There, you have your circle that have similar experiences. I have my circle that have similar experiences, and we don't understand the other's experience fully. Media
Mm.
gives us a version of that, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we're complacent enough to be satisfied with that version,
Mm.
and then based on that version, we make our assessments. Oh well, you know they're dealing with that and they'll be fine. Or oh, these
Mm.
Black Lives Matter, they're just so wild and they're so this and that and violent, and then we have an insurrection at the Capitol. You know what I mean? So
Mm.
it's like perspectives. Like it's all about perspectives. Like to be honest, man, I would love to sit down and have a conversation with a Trump supporter. I would love to do that. Because I
Mm.
think that's where now that is where the meat of the change happens. Having that conversation and realizing that in order for my opinion and viewpoint to be valid, I have to make space for theirs. I
Mm.
have to make space for their reality in order for my reality to be valid. Because for me,
Mm.
like that's the way you think is wrong. What does that say about how I think? They
Mm.
had a whole different set of experiences, and
Mm.
those experiences have accumulated to who they are
Mm.
now.
Mm. Again, it just comes back to, the work, right? That's an understatement, right? He said, right? It's an understatement that the healing that, one has to, that you have done, and others have done, uh, to be able to even invite that, maybe it
Yeah,
hasn't happened yet.
yeah,
But for you to say that I'm inviting that into my life, and I'm gonna hold space, because like you're
yeah,
saying, then that's how, then right there's a space of possibility, eh,
yeah,
right, of change, right,
yeah,
if we're going to have
definitely.
that interaction there. And uh, you know I just made a commitment, that's new in this year, like I was telling you, to do more men's work. And it's been in my life, but as a coach, to be holding small groups, uh, and I made a decision to do it for white men, to do
Nice,
that. And because I was really reading, well, someone suggested that I have that focus, and then I was reading that book, My Grandmother's Hands, and that's what he said. He said, like you said, I have my circles, you have your circles, and but then for the sake of, we do our work so we can get ready enough to then have conversations like these, that I can just sit here and say, yeah, I not flinch when you say it's different for black men and white men, right? And not flinch. Or even if I flinch, be
yeah,
aware that I'm flinching, right? And something's happening in my body,
yes,
and
exactly,
whatever it is, but that I can get to that place and say, yes, that is true. That's what happened, and still happening. And like, that's what happened last week, let alone 200 years ago, 400
yeah,
years ago. That happened last week. That happened today, somewhere that I don't know, in the news,
yeah,
that it hasn't gotten to me yet. But that's
yes, yep,
that's our present day,
yep,
reality. So there's that, that yeah, we have to do, we have to do our own work, and that's, and then come to it for the sake of, of
yes,
us, having this unified conversation. So thank you, I appreciate it. And then, kind of where I, in the next few minutes, we can kind of start tying the bundle is, just looking at my notes here, right? It all comes back to, what you shared about love, and art creation
yes,
as a way of life, and it's not
yes,
about black and white. Art, it's not linear. And then I was using black and white the way
yes,
you were saying, not as race, but you were saying it as a linear thing. So how, for me, art, right, music, it's what takes us to that beyond place where yeah, we don't get stuck, in all the
Yeah.
stuff that makes us feel stuck. It's like, I don't know where to go, I don't know where to
Yes.
turn, and
Yes.
then all of a sudden I listen to a song, and then it's like, whew, I can
Yeah.
move with it. I see the path open, so, and
Yeah.
I can feel the
Yeah.
love, so yeah, I'm just curious. You want to make those connections?
Man. I when I say like art is not black and white to me, I really believe that my life right now is art. For example, I'm gonna start from small, and I'm gonna bring. I cut my own hair. I'm like, I am my own canvas. I know exactly how I want my hair to look. I'm gonna do that. My food. I treat food like it's the Mona Lisa, right? I
Hmm.
have this blank canvas. I've got my quinoa. I've got my red peppers, my green peppers. I've got my mushrooms, my chickpeas. What am I gonna do with all these colors? Okay, cool. I'm gonna make. I'm gonna throw a little bit of salt here. Use some garlic pepper. Use some complete seasonings here. Use a little paprika. My am I going to use grapeseed or olive oil? Olive oil is going to add another texture and color, and so for me that's another canvas. And then the most obvious, like, I do visual arts as well. I look at legacy, right, and what my grandparents left behind. My grandfather was a vocalist, and he was a director of a choir. My grandmother was a visual artist, and I feel like I embody both those things seamlessly, and I love it. And then they were all about like athletics. My granddad was like fitness, um, education, art, music. So now, with that being said, I do visual arts. Like, for example, if you look at the artwork for Love Me Still, it's actually a canvas painting that I have that I digitized. So I have a canvas painting of the actual single art for Love Me Still. During the pandemic, when they shut down all performances, I was going stir crazy because I'm like, I love performing. I love connecting with people. So doing some live streaming, and again, that's one form of art in the performance. And throughout the pandemic, I created an EP called Relax, Relate, Release, which kind of reflected some of the feelings that were coming up during the pandemic. But then one of the other things I do is I started woodworking. And
Mm,
now with
mm,
woodworking, right? I
mm.
I I'm like, all right, when I start playing again, I gotta be seen with the nicest guitar. So when I ordered a guitar kit, blank canvas, just wood and parts, and
Mm,
I started carving. I started carving,
mm.
and so in the back of the guitar on has a map of Guyana where my parents are from, with my logo in the
Wow.
middle. The front has an etching of a lion, kind of like the Lion of Judah, but not exactly, but a Lion of Judah. And then on the side, it has the saying in English, "Be water," and on the other side in Mandarin, it says, "Be water, my friend," because I truly believe that that's how we need to be. We need to be malleable. Um, yeah, and so I'm like, everything that I touch, even in conversation, I feel like I approach conversation as art, because it's an art to communicating with someone and not infringing upon their beliefs, but sharing what you believe as well. And so that's why I'm like, art is non-linear. Like, I live art, I breathe art, everything I do is art. You know, Even in the way I communicate with people, the way I love people is an art to that. And so that's why I truly believe like art is just, it's something that's ever changing, always moving. It's really just like, I look at art like love. Like the words are interchangeable for me. Speaking of which, I'm not
Mm,
sure if you got a chance to check it out. I created an art piece called Love Is. Love is really my philosophy. I believe that love is the only thing that exists. It's either a presence of it or an absence of it in any given situation, and degrees in between.
mm,
So the song's called Love Is. It's just my voice, keys, and
mm,
some strings. And what I did with a poet friend of mine called Io in Motion. He's actually another person that you should get in touch with too
mm-hmm.
for these types of conversations. He did a
Yeah.
poetry piece, and we shot some live footage, an unplugged version of the song called "Love Is." It was myself playing keys. He did a poem, and then I had the strings behind me. And so I'm like, I'm always just trying to find different ways to express myself through
Mm,
the medium of music or art.
mm, beautiful. Well, this is another thing I didn't ask your permission ahead of time, but
It's okay.
Erin, I mentioned to her it would be wonderful, and she did at the end of our conversation. She gave us a little something. So
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, we can do
would you like
that.
to share that a little clip of "Love Is" a little
Oh yeah, I can
one
definitely
of
do that. I
those
can definitely do that.
stanzas? Yeah, yeah, it'd be a good
Yeah,
way.
no. I guess yeah, I'm always prepared.
Water, be water. Water is
There
life.
you go. There you
Mini
go.
Wachoni.
So this song is called "Love Is," and like I said, I believe that love is the only thing that matters. For every time that you gave love, there was a time when you hated love. For every heart that you break, there were nights when your tears filled your heart to replace love. Can you touch, can you taste love? How many times did you waste love? All the years of regret you wish you could forget, but you still go and chase love. Love is the only thing that matters. Love is the thing that conquers all. Love will be there before and after you fall. Love conquers all. La 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 la. Love.
Mm,
Yeah.
Ashe.
Yes. So yeah,
Yeah,
that song's actually available on all the streaming platforms, and I'm gonna be releasing the video for that probably in the next week or so. But yeah,
beautiful.
that song, like, there was a lot of healing in creating that song, and every time I sing that song, I feel a different version of that healing.
Mm,
Because we have so
mm,
many relationships that we can apply love to. It's not only an amorous one,
mm-hmm,
family, the world, fellow
mm-hmm.
man.
Yeah, yeah. Just when you say that, there's so many different kinds of relationships. It makes me think of one of my probably my favorite Martin Luther King speech. Uh, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I was told to introduce him in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Love your enemies, right? He says there's three. He goes through it really, in a beautiful, methodical way. Like there's these kinds of love. There's brotherly love, there's romantic love, and then there's can't think of the third one right now, but there's there's these different ways, and then there's yeah. What is that other one?
Is it
A
agape love?
family. Yeah, I think it is family love. It was three, but
Mm-hmm.
I recommend everyone go and listen to that. It's on Vimeo or YouTube. Love your enemies,
Nice.
MLK speech. But
Yes.
yeah, so yeah, just for me listening to it, it's just listening to you sing. Thank you. Is it just like you're saying, lead by example. This conversation, we're getting into all of these challenging topics, which it feels maybe in a moment it's challenging, and then it feels like a lot of release and connection, and
Mm-hmm.
but it's work, right? It's like, wow, we're in there, we're doing the work right now, having this
Yeah.
conversation. That's how I feel, right? And then to hear this song at the end, it's like, yeah, that's what music does. It for me, it like, oh yeah, oh, I remember why
Mm.
this is
Mm-hmm.
important to me, why I
Mm-hmm.
need to show up for these. It gives me that moment of healing where I can remember, you know uh, and it renews my commitment, my spirit of staying in the game,
Yes.
so that's for me where uh music is in my life. I really appreciate it, that you bring in it in this way, and with the consciousness, because like you said, whatever topic that you're speaking about, and love is the universal topic that everyone, right? You're bringing all of who you are to every
Yes.
note, to every lyric, so people are going to feel, like you said, you know how you're walking in the world.
Yeah.
And so that's a, a contribution, because it's that ripple effect.
Mm. Mm.
So thank you.
Definitely.
Thank you. And yeah, I would love for you to just share any final thoughts with our listeners, our alliance community here,
Well,
just whatever is present for you in this moment.
sure. 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 I think one. I want to thank you again for this. I I realize that as I seek out in private these conversations, they come to me. I like, you mentioned meditation earlier, and I'm really big on that. I really feel like in that space, we are communing with who we actually are, and we can take the opportunity to create the world that we want to see outside of us in that space. And so I encourage anybody who doesn't. I mean, all you need, even if you're just closing your eyes and breathing for 5 minutes, blocking out every and any distraction, and becoming one with yourself, it grounds you. It releases anxiety, and it kind of puts you in the moment. It makes you present. And especially in times like this, we need to be as present as possible with ourselves. We need to love as much as possible, starting with ourselves. Everything is self, and as you mentioned, it's all about the work. I think I'm gonna do a song entitled "Work" that kind of reflects that, like the things that we need to do to continue being our best self.
Mm.
That journey never stops until we expire. When it does, then it means it's almost time for you to, you know. But that journey never stops. We're always looking, or should be rather, to be our best selves, the best version of ourselves. And each day that's going to be different, you know.
Hmm. Amen. Thank you, Edson Sean. Yeah, there'll be a link in the by the write up for your website. I think that's probably
Okay.
just the best way, right,
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah. Yep.
connect with you.
Mhm.
edsonshawn.com.
Yep. Website. Also, on all social media platforms: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. It's Edson Sean. EDSONSEAN. One word. You can chat with me there. Yeah, hit me with a DM. I would love to hear. If anything that I've said or a conversation that Lev and I've said resonates, hit me up and let's talk about it. I'm very open. I'm easy to get in contact with. So
Beautiful. Thank you.